Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Thursday, Success Thursday. Of course, the big question of the week this week with Milica Lubinic. Hey Milica, welcome back.
Hello, happy to be back.
So Thursday is Success Day here on the podcast. We'll talk about success in a minute, but first, the tool we most use to try to reach that success, of course, Agile Retrospective. So Milica, share with us, what's the preferred Agile Retrospective format in your practice and why?
I wouldn't say that I have a preferable format, but maybe a way of doing it is that I'm usually maybe more focusing on maybe more often using solution-focused approach. So it's kind of looking into what kind of future would we like to have, and what do we need to get there. I think kind of moving a bit away, and I think it's also very important for engineers because they have a very kind of their mind is very set on thinking about root causes and kind of problems and, how do we untackle this? And this is kind of switching that a bit more into what is the thing that we would like to have and how would that look like? And then what do we need right now to get there? What are the things that we already have so that we can celebrate them? But then what are the things that we still need? What is lacking? But again, as I said, we're not talking from the problem perspective, but rather from the solution perspective. So what is the thing that we need as a team to become better at refinements? We talked about refinements earlier this week as one example. So if we are, talking about the refinement not working, and that's been a problem for our team for a while, and we have endless conversations, and we only have 2 or 3 people talking about it, then okay, how would we like refinements to look like? What is the ideal? Let's imagine, what is the ideal refinement that we would like to have? How does the conversation look like? How does the decision-making look like? What are the outcomes? How do we get there? Let's imagine, let's create that ideal space for us. And then what do we need right now to get there without talking about the problem itself, but rather, okay, what are the additional, supporting structures that we need on the go to actually get there? And I think that helps because it's not dragging teams into the problem space. They're very often even aware of the problems, but just not able to think about how to get out of them. And this way, we're kind of literally looking into, okay, what is the desired future? How does that look like? And how do we get there? And I think that's
How do you, in your experience, how do you see the difference that it causes in the conversations within the retrospective? If we take, for example, these two contrasting, and I do realize that this is a spectrum, it's not black and white, but if we take these two contrasting approaches, one which is problem-centric, right, like root cause analysis and so on, and the other that is solution-centric, what would we like to have and what do we want to do to get there? Like, what do you see are the biggest differences in the conversation during the retrospective that come from these different approaches?
I think it's a variety of choices. So if you think about, thinking about a certain problem and you are trying to define a one problem or 2 problems or challenges or issues that we have behind, we're only focusing on that. And then our span of different options that we have to address that problem is in a way limited. But if you talk about a bright, beautiful future that we might have, then getting to that future can have various different paths. It can have a lot of different things in the background, and it's a bit more of a kind of this choice span, let's put it that way. So I think that's the biggest difference. We're not, and also from the psychological perspective, we're not swirling around the problem area that can be very hard on people in certain situations, but rather focusing on, okay, if this is our desired reality, how do we get there? And talking more about this what would be this intrinsic motivator for the people to actually move there, because they're looking into something beautiful that they created.
And one of my experiences, and I think you implicitly talked about it, I'm not sure, is that it creates a much more, or it generates a more creative atmosphere, right? Because then we are brainstorming what could we do to get there, rather than what is the one thing that will solve this problem. And I do recognize, being an engineer by train myself, I do recognize this tendency to want to find the one solution, right? And that can be very limiting and constraining, because there often isn't only one solution. There are many, and we don't even need to find the best solution. We just need to find a solution that is good enough. And I think that the solutions-focused coaching and solutions-focused retrospectives might actually be able to bring that perspective to the team.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also helpful to think about it from the perspective of also decision making. And you said it has to be good enough for now and safe enough to try. And we can have 10 different options that we want to experiment with, rather than, kind of investing a lot of energy and really holding strongly to this one thing that kind of we figured that we can do. So it's kind of like about, also I think a nicer a way of dealing with complexity in a way.
Absolutely. Also because we don't know until we do something if something will work, no matter how much analysis we did. Right. And we do this retrospectives, of course, because we want to help our teams succeed, but also ourselves succeed. That's what we talk about next, Milica. So share with us, what's your definition of success for you as a Scrum Master?
I think I'm always struggling with with this question, because I don't think there's one definition. There's so many things that you take into account. But I think one thing that I'm kind of focusing the most, I would say, is team trust or psychological safety. And that being said, you can also understand how hard it is to measure that, right? It's kind of, it can be a root cause to a lot of different dysfunctions in the team. And at the same time, it's super hard to measure. So you can measure a lot of other things. So again, going back to the refinement, I'm kind of talking about this refinement from the beginning of this week, but I think it's a good example. So if things are not working out in this in this team, and a lot of people do not feel comfortable to talk and to share their perspectives in the refinement, then we are maybe having a problem, a root cause in a certain way in psychological safety. It can be different other things, but it could be that as well. So what I'm trying to say is that it can be a root cause to a lot of different things, and we can look at the certain aspects of that throughout different meetings and different behaviors within the team. But it's definitely hard to measure. It's hard to say, hey, yeah, we're better in psychological safety because team members are now talking more in the refinement. It doesn't have to be, a single one-on-one kind of relation, right? So what I'm usually doing, I created a little survey that I'm doing with the teams on a continuous basis, not to track the progress itself, even though it's helpful to see if there is progress, but rather to have meaningful conversations around these couple of aspects on a continuous basis. So let's say, for example, very often, or what I've seen very often in teams, that they have a very functional retrospective. So a lot of things are out there. You feel like they're having a good conversation, but it all feels superficial. And there is a lot of artificial harmony in the background, right? So there's no conflict. Things are working out. There is nothing where you could say, this is a problem. But in the end, you kind of have that feeling, and that there are things that could, that we could dive deeper into. And I think this kind of this survey that I created and that I'm introducing in teams is helping have an ongoing reflection on the things that are actually important. So one of the questions, I read it in a blog a while ago. I can't remember where I read about it, but it's a beautiful question that you can also put into, that I have also put into the survey, and it can be useful to other Scrum Masters as well, is it expensive, or it is expensive to be yourself in the team? It kind of connects to the belonging thing that we talked beginning of the year, of the week. And when you have a statement like that, and then you have people who are like, yes, it is expensive. And then you have people who are, no, it's not expensive. And we have a very wide distribution of answers, then it's something that we need to dive deeper into. And without exposing individuals, without attacking their personal sense of space and safety, we are having a conversation as a team. And how that can look like is, okay, so we have this wide distribution here. Let's, play an imaginary game. If you were in the shoes of someone who does not feel that they can be themselves in the team, what are some possible reasons that you could think of that could be the reason for that? And then you're kind of putting people in, someone else's shoes. You're asking them to try and think about what are the things that could be creating this kind of atmosphere for a certain individual. And you're kind of starting a conversation from there. Sometimes it can be a cultural thing. That's also something that we're not looking into, probably not enough in multicultural contexts. Because for certain people, kind of being who we are means different things, right? And also maybe having a joke about certain things for certain people can be super insulting, while for others it's just a joke and it doesn't mean anything. So understanding these cultural differences can also be helpful, but that's the thing that you can only understand once you've had that conversation. Maybe the jokes that we're having are not comfortable for someone, and then you can start a conversation. Oh wow, what would make it uncomfortable? How does that look like? And you're diving into that conversation a bit deeper. So I think that helps with both looking into where your team is, but also helping build on that psychological safety, because we are as a team taking responsibility to think about how to get better at this, looking into a lot of different aspects.
By the way, out of curiosity, have you published that survey somewhere?
No.
All right. If you do decide to publish, I'm happy to link to it and help you promote it. So if you do that, do drop me a link and we'll add it to the show notes. I really love that aspect of using the survey as kind of a conversation trigger. I mean, again, a theme we've had for the last 3 episodes, conversations as one of the key tools we have as Scrum Masters to move things forward. So I really like that. And I would add to that, you did implicitly, but I would add explicitly that it's a great self-reflection tool for us, right? It helps us find areas that we might not be paying attention to on a daily basis, but then the survey brings up and then we are able to reflect on it. So because you've studied linguistics, I'm sure that you're very aware of this, that language does matter and it's a very important tool in the work that we do. And surveys allows us some stability of sensors, right? Like, because otherwise every time we ask a question, we ask it different words and it has a different meaning in the person that hears it. And it doesn't allow us to see that there's a change or a progress, but with the survey, we are able to do that. So that's really great. Thank you for sharing that, Milica.
Thank you. I'm glad I was able to.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.